Vessels large and small can sink or capsize with terrifying speed. That makes the prospect of abandoning ship something every vessel and every seaman must prepare for. Circumstances that may result in an abandoned ship crisis include collision, fire, foundering, grounding, hull failure, machinery failure, and weather-related emergencies. Because the sea is a hostile environment, abandoning ship places crew members at extreme risk. Man-overboard emergencies are equally dangerous. The threats to human life include drowning, hypothermia, dehydration, starvation, exposure, and hostile marine life. In most latitudes, the ocean is cold, and cold water quickly disables the unprotected human body. The colder the water, the greater the threat. But cold-related hazards like hypothermia exist even in seemingly mild conditions. A human body is at risk anytime it is immersed in water capable of causing heat loss to outstrip heat production. Even in the tropics, an unaided individual's ability to swim or tread water is finite, so that the hazard posed by the ocean environment extends worldwide. To contend with these dangers, modern vessels carry substantial inventories of safety and survival gear and conduct regular drilling, training, and assessment operations. This program offers an overview of personal survival techniques in accordance with Table 6 of the STCW Code as amended in 1995.
Lifeboat number 2, all present and accounted for.
It offers self-testing and assessment features that enable you to measure your knowledge and document your participation in your vessel's training, drilling, and assessment program. As you watch the videotape, keep in mind that your vessel may have additional policies and procedures that you must follow. Surviving a crisis at sea depends on knowledge, teamwork, and equipment. While equipment is vital, even the best gear is only as good as the people using it. That makes knowledge and teamwork the critical factors in survival at sea. Knowledge helps eliminate the mistakes in judgment that may spell the difference between life and death. Knowledge supports the will to survive, and strong will is a primary difference between those who make it and those who don't.
Come down to the embarkation level.
Training, drilling, and assessment operations are designed to ensure that you know how to use your vessel's safety and survival equipment properly and are capable of functioning as an effective member of an emergency response team. These operations are conducted for your benefit and the benefit of your crewmates. Their lives may depend on your decisions. Your emergency duties are identified on the station bills posted in prominent public spaces aboard the vessel and on the station card posted in your stateroom. Study these documents as soon as you join the vessel. Ask your supervisor to explain anything you don't understand. The station bill establishes the chain of command that will be followed during a crisis and assigns each crew member a station and a job. Survival is a team effort, and every member of the team plays a role in the outcome of the emergency response. The officers aboard your vessel will rely on the assumption that you know your station and your job when emergency alarms are sounded. Don't let them down. The vessel's safety plan identifies the location of its safety and survival equipment. Shortly after boarding, you will receive familiarization training designed to acquaint you with the vessel and its safety program. If you still have questions, it's your right and your responsibility to study the safety plan, to inspect the vessel, and to query your supervisors until you understand your emergency duties. Personal survival equipment is generally stowed in individual staterooms. Inspect your gear immediately and make sure it fits and is in good condition. Ring buoys and water lights are positioned around the deck where they can be deployed immediately if someone falls overboard. Emergency communications and signaling equipment is positioned on the bridge. Firefighting and emergency breathing equipment are situated in the engine room. Embarkation deck lockers house gear that must be immediately accessible to the crew of a vessel in distress. Each vessel carries a complement of survival craft that may include inflatable life rafts, lifeboats, and fast rescue boats. Additional survival equipment ranges from search and rescue transponders and emergency position indicating radio beacons to pyrotechnic signals and thermal protective aids. We'll consider this equipment in detail later in the program. No one is ever 100% ready for an emergency at sea. Emergency situations always develop unexpectedly, and every situation is unique. Nearly all vessel casualties are the result of human error.
Valdez traffic, Exxon Valdez, over. Time Valdez, Valdez traffic. Evidently, leaking some oil.
In a crisis, making good decisions is the only thing that stands between the vessel and catastrophe. But fear and confusion can easily overwhelm good judgment. Because every emergency is different, there is no simple prescription for survival. Preparations that are sufficient for the Gulf of Mexico may be entirely inadequate for the Bering Sea, for example, but the underlying objective is identical. The operator of the vessel has to ensure that the right gear is aboard and that it's properly stowed and serviced. The crew has to know how to use it. Installing, inspecting, and servicing equipment are tasks that must occur before the vessel leaves the dock. Once the vessel is at sea, regular training and drills are the only means of ensuring that the crew is ready to respond effectively to a crisis.
8 to 12, Q-man.
A crew that hasn't prepared in advance will probably make avoidable mistakes in a real emergency, while trained crews that survive crisis situations often state that it was just like a drill. While every emergency is unique, the 7 steps represent a philosophy of sea survival that should help in any circumstance. Being aware that you're in danger is obviously the first step in coping with an emergency, but your mind may play tricks on you. The proximity of danger becomes routine for anyone who goes to sea, and that's a danger in itself. Whenever danger seems routine, it's easy to forget how serious the consequences of an accident or a mistake in judgment can be. Your mind may strive to minimize or ignore what your senses have perceived, but you've got to master disbelief. You've got to admit that you're in trouble soon enough to prepare an effective response. Don't let pride or panic keep you from calling for help and breaking out the survival gear. Responding quickly is the key to staying alive. What is the source of the danger? What shape is your crew in? And what equipment do you have to help cope with the emergency? If you're the vessel master or the leader of an emergency team, you've got to stand back for an instant and evaluate the crisis. If you're prepared, much of your equipment inventory will be staged and ready for use, and your crew will know their jobs. Then, as the crisis evolves, you've got to constantly update your inventories. Have the dangers grown or diminished? Are there new hazards that complicate the emergency? Which crewmen are functioning well, and which have been rendered helpless by injury or fear? What materials or supplies can be used to augment the survival gear? Cold is the killer in the northern and southern oceans, and you won't last very long without shelter. Water robs body heat much faster than air of the same temperature, so that exposure to cold water quickly disables someone who lacks adequate shelter. Your vessel is your best shelter as long as you can safely remain on board. When the vessel is no longer safe, personal flotation devices, immersion suits, and survival craft become the next best alternatives. But shelter isn't something to consider only in an emergency. Your everyday deck gear represents a vital form of shelter. You need layers of polypropylene or wool to keep you warm, and waterproof foul weather gear that protects you from the wind and spray. Without good foul weather gear, you may get so wet and cold that you're hypothermic before you become the victim of an in-the-water emergency. Obviously, this reduces your chances of survival even further. Rescue at sea depends on alerting someone who can help you. Floating in a life jacket, you present 2 to 4 square feet of surface area, yet the pilot of a searching aircraft may be trying to find you within an area that measures tens of thousands of square miles. Unless you can draw the attention of rescue units, your chances may be almost zero. A signal is anything that makes you bigger, brighter, or different from your surroundings.
Mayday, mayday, mayday.
Your radio is your best signaling device because it makes you enormous and enables you to convey specific details about your location and condition. You should make a distress call as soon as you recognize that a potential emergency exists.
We are sinking, position 5725 north.
When you lose radio contact, you have to depend on EPIRBs, SARTs, flares, strobes, flashlights, dyes, mirrors, your voice, anything that attracts attention. If you keep the bigger, brighter, different philosophy in mind, surprising objects can become effective signals. You need fresh water to stay alive and maintain the physical and mental strength necessary for coping with the ordeal of survival. Take as much fresh water as you can, but don't drink salt water, alcohol, or urine.
Torches. We got water.
The question of when and how much to drink depends on the circumstances of the emergency. In the tropics, rationing may be your highest priority, and any water you drink during the first 24 hours of the ordeal could simply be wasted in the form of perspiration or urine. In cold, harsh latitudes, you should consider drinking rationed quantities of water right away to preserve your strength and your faculties. The grim fact is that rationing for extended survival may not matter in an environment in which cold is a much more serious threat than thirst.
All right, rations and food.
You need high-energy food to maintain your strength, but keep in mind that water is more important than food. Don't eat if you don't have water, because digestion robs water from your body. If you have adequate shelter and water, you can live a long time without food. If you do have both water and food, eat to help maintain your strength and your body's ability to generate heat.
Ain't no sense worrying about it.
Emergency gear won't keep you alive if you don't have the will to survive. Play can be a game or a joke, anything that helps sustain your morale and your willpower.
Beat Jiminy right out of me. Yeah, big splash at the end. Oh man, I never thought I'd be out in the water like this.
It's easy to die. You've got to fight for life if you plan to be a survivor.
Calling. Be on lookout.
If you're the leader, you have to worry not only about your own morale, but the morale of your crew. Panic or despair can be contagious.
Everybody give way. Give way.
The leader must strive to build morale and control negative behaviors, and the play step can be vital for both. Panic is a state of emotional tension and heightened imagination that causes people to act impulsively rather than rationally. It's caused by the awareness that one's life is in great danger. An aggravating factor is loss of faith in the leader. The best means of eliminating panic is to prepare the crew to react effectively under a wide range of circumstances.
Ocean Bounty, this is Coast Guard Constantly Kodiak, Coast Guard Constantly Kodiak 4125, over. Yeah, this is Ocean Bounty, we're starting to lose power. We're losing power. We lose this radio shortly. Get a chopper out here, okay?
Making a distress call early and effectively provides your best hope of surviving a crisis at sea. You should use every communications tool at your disposal to advise rescue units about your location and condition.
13504! 30450! We're going down!
All ships subject to the Safety of Life at Sea, or SOLAS Convention, now participate in the Global Maritime Distress and Safety System. GMDSS is an automated ship-to-shore system incorporating satellites and digital selective calling technology. It provides shoreside search and rescue authorities and nearby ships with rapid notification of the location and condition of a vessel in distress. The system provides worldwide all-weather distress communications, as well as improved maritime safety information, including navigational and meteorological warnings and weather forecasts. The system relies on a variety of equipment, including radios equipped with digital selective calling, emergency position indicating radio beacons, and search and rescue transponders. Digital selective calling makes calling for help easier and faster. With the push of a button, your digital distress message containing your vessel's identification number will be received by both shore stations and nearby DSC-equipped vessels. Digital signals have a greater range, which increases your chance of being heard. The GMDSS provides for automatic distress alerting and locating in cases where a radio operator doesn't have time to send an SOS or Mayday call. It also requires ships to receive broadcasts of maritime safety information in an effort to keep emergencies from occurring in the first place. EPIRBs are battery-powered transmitters that broadcast radio signals designed to help rescue units find you. Next to your radio, an EPIRB is the most effective distress signal at your disposal. The modern system of 406 MHz satellite EPIRBs operates on a dedicated rescue frequency that provides instantaneous signal recognition from anywhere on the globe. Activating the unit provides authorities with all of the information contained on the owner's registration and identification card within 6 to 10 minutes. They immediately attempt to contact the registered owner of the EPIRB to verify that an emergency has occurred. Data from polar orbiting satellites gives them the EPIRB's precise position within 3 hours. Category 1 EPIRBs are housed in canisters or brackets that are fastened to the vessel. The housing incorporates a hydrostatic release that frees the unit if it is submerged. The EPIRB then floats free and activates automatically. Category 2 units are mounted on brackets that should be located in easily accessible spaces. These units must be manually deployed and activated. Since EPIRBs are battery-powered, maintaining a fully charged battery is crucial. A fresh battery will keep an EPIRB operating for a minimum of 48 hours, even in Arctic conditions. Category 1 and 2 units incorporate a self-testing circuit that performs an internal check and transmits a special testing signal without falsely alerting search and rescue authorities. To test these units, simply activate the self-testing circuit according to the manufacturer's instructions. As soon as you realize you have an emergency, verify that the EPIRB is on. After you activate your EPIRB, leave it on. Search and rescue transponders, or SARTs, aid in the location of survivors by enhancing the radar visibility of small targets. The SART is often mounted near the EPIRB and should be taken with you when you abandon the vessel. SARTs need to be positioned as high as possible above the surface of the water to allow a passing ship to receive the distress signature on its radar screen. The SART signal shows up as a distinct dashed line. Cold is the killer in ocean environments outside of the tropics, and shelter is the key to survival. Adequate shelter amounts to the right combination of flotation and thermal protection. The importance of flotation is obvious. You won't survive if you can't breathe. Without some form of flotation, even good swimmers will have difficulty staying afloat in cold water. Thermal protection is also crucial, and staying warm depends on staying out of the water. Your body loses heat up to 25 times faster in water than in air of the same temperature. That means the first rule of ocean survival is to stay dry. Don't get into the water if you can avoid it. If you do have to get into the water, get out as soon as you can. If you can't get all the way out, get as much of your body out as possible, especially the critical heat loss areas, the head, neck, armpits, sides, and groin. Your clothing represents a vital component of your personal shelter. You need layers of warm clothing, even if you'll be wearing an immersion suit. Fabrics like wool or polypropylene are far superior to cotton because they don't absorb water. Wear a watch cap to protect your head. Your head is the source of 50 to 70% of your body's heat loss. If you have to enter the water without an immersion suit, the cold shock could be disabling or even fatal. Extra clothing and a waterproof outer layer like a work suit or foul weather gear will help reduce this shock effect. Extra clothing will prolong your survival time by reducing heat loss, and it won't weigh you down. Quite the opposite. Air trapped between the layers of clothing or in the toes of boots will help keep you afloat if you assume a relaxed, back-floating position with your feet up. Ocean-going vessels are required to carry Type 1 personal flotation devices for each crew member or passenger. A seaman should be capable of properly donning the device in 60 seconds. All straps or snaps should be secured. The device should be properly fitted and positioned, and the whistle and light should be tested. To enter the water wearing this device, cover your mouth and nose with one hand. Position the other hand across your chest to keep the jacket from riding up or coming off. Keep your legs straight and your feet together or your ankles crossed to minimize the risk of injury. You must be able to swim while wearing the device. The Type 1 PFD is designed to turn you from a face-down to a face-up position in the water, even if you're unconscious and in a heavy sea state. It enables you to assume the heat escape lessening posture or help position to minimize heat loss. While this item is a component of the personal protective equipment you are required to wear in many circumstances, it isn't something you're likely to put on if you don't have to. There are numerous other flotation devices available on the market that are less cumbersome and suitable for working in with varying degrees of restrictiveness. Some, like the work suits that feature wrist and ankle closures and hoods, offer thermal protection as well as flotation. It's simple common sense to wear some form of flotation whenever there's a chance you might wind up in the water. Be aware, however, that everyone floats differently and that a PFD that works for one person may not work for you. Fit is critical for all PFDs. Too loose a fit and the device may ride up on your torso while your face slips toward the water. Make sure there is little or no gap between your shoulder and the shoulder of your PFD when you're floating in the water, and consider selecting a device that utilizes a crotch strap to keep it in place. The more fully the device covers your critical heat loss areas and reduces the flushing action of cold water against your torso, the more thermal protection it provides. Be aware, however, that no PFD compares to an immersion suit in terms of preserving body heat. Information published by manufacturers with respect to the hypothermia protection afforded by their products is based on calm water testing. In the ocean, as the sea state rises, the insulation value of all PFDs degrades rapidly as cold water intrudes and flushes around the body. Average-sized people require about 14 pounds of buoyancy to keep their heads and necks out of choppy water. Some require as many as 18 or 19 pounds. A Type 1 PFD has a minimum of 22 pounds of buoyancy, and most have more. The Type 1 is the only device that will turn you face up with a high degree of certainty. Some of the others will actually turn you face down if you try to assume the help position. If you find yourself overboard in cold water, the key to survival is the opposite of the natural tendency to struggle mightily to save yourself. From the standpoint of conserving body heat, the best possible behavior is to remain calm and still. In contrast, struggling or swimming cause maximum heat loss because of the flushing action of cold water against the body's critical heat loss areas, as well as the expenditure of calories produced by strenuous exercise. A calm body floats better than a tense one, and controlled breath and pulse rates help minimize heat loss. Of course, remaining calm and controlled may be impossible. You've got to do the best you can considering the circumstances. If rescue units are on the way and you've got enough flotation to keep your head out of the water, don't swim. If there's any form of flotation nearby, use it to get your head, neck, and torso out of the water. You're better off atop an overturned hull, even exposed to wind and spray, than you are in the water. If there are 2 or more people in the water, huddle together. There will be less heat loss, your morale will be better, and you'll be easier to spot. Immersion suits are essential for each crew member or passenger aboard vessels that operate in cold or remote regions. These are the only devices that should be regarded as effective abandoned ship garments in cold water. They should probably be called abandoned ship suits because they're much too cumbersome to work in. Immersion suits are designed to fit over normal clothing. Each suit should be marked with the name of the vessel. Be sure you practice donning your suit before the vessel goes to sea. You should be capable of donning the device in 60 seconds or less. The suit must fit properly and form a tight seal around the face. It must be free of holes or other defects and have a free-sliding zipper. It should have an inflatable pillow. The pillow keeps your head and neck out of the water for better thermal protection and helps eliminate the fatigue of holding your head up. Inflate it every time you inspect the suit to be sure it's still airtight. Each suit should feature a signal light, preferably a strobe, and a whistle. It should have reflective patches on the head and shoulder areas. If someone is searching for you in the dark, the reflective material will be all that's visible if you don't have flares or a signal light. Preferably, your suit will include a lifting ring and buddy cord. At the very least, practice donning your suit on deck. If you can do so safely, test it in the water to make sure it keeps you dry. Immersion suits should be stowed so that crew members aboard a rapidly sinking boat can get them out of stowage and on their persons as fast as possible. Immersion suits should be donned only on open decks. The enormous buoyancy and bulkiness of an immersion suit means that you may be trapped if you put it on inside a vessel that sinks suddenly. Immersion suits should be stowed in the bag provided by the manufacturer. To eject the suit, simply hold the bag upside down and thrust it sharply downward. Wear as much clothing as you can under the suit, including a watch cap and shoes or boots. Practice in advance to be certain the garments you intend to wear will fit. Slipping a plastic bag over your feet helps eliminate friction. On a rolling deck, sit down and put the suit on like a child's pajamas. First, get your feet into the legs. Next, put your weak arm into one sleeve. Use your strong arm to pull the hood over your head. Put your strong arm into its sleeve after the rest of the suit is on. Arch your back to remove wrinkles in the fabric as you zip the zipper. Be sure that your zipper has a lanyard long enough to enable you to grasp it easily with the gloves on. Close the face flap before you enter the water. Unless you have a suit with detachable gloves or a zippered hand opening, you'll have virtually no use of your hands with the suit on. If you need to use your hands, stage the suit by tying the arms around your waist like a ski sweater. Enter the water from the lowest possible point. Be alert to hazards below you. Use your inboard arm to protect your head from striking the vessel. Cover your face with your other hand to keep water out of the suit and to minimize the cold shock. Cross your legs as you hit the water in case there is floating debris. If you land hard, air trapped in the feet and legs of the suit may flip you upside down. Keep calm and the suit will quickly right itself. Float on your back and inflate the pillow. Do the backstroke to maneuver towards safety or away from danger. Relax. The buoyancy of the suit will keep you afloat with no effort whatsoever. Immersion suits should be inspected frequently. Look for leaks or rips in the fabric, inspect the stitching and gluing on each seam, and test the inflation pillow and mouth tube. The zipper should be lubricated with paraffin after each inspection. If your suit has been exposed to salt water, rinse it thoroughly with fresh water. Be sure it's completely dry before you stow it in the bag. The abandoned ship alarm consists of more than 6 short blasts on the ship's whistle, followed by 1 long blast, and the same signal on the general alarm. If you hear it, don your life preserver and get to your muster station as quickly as possible.
Put our life jackets on. Does a good job getting out and down here nice and fast.
Wait for further orders before launching the survival craft or abandoning the vessel. Waiting too long to abandon ship is a mistake that has cost lives, but so has abandoning too early. Abandonment is the skipper's decision alone and means that the vessel is in imminent danger. It means that immersion suits or PFDs and survival craft have become better shelter than the vessel. Be sure you know the fastest escape routes from interior spaces, the location of your assigned muster station, and what equipment or supplies you're assigned to bring. Practice using the escape routes until you can find your way in the dark. Lifeboats are the primary survival craft aboard ships. They can be closed or open and powered by engines, hand propelling gears, or oars. They're normally double-ended for seaworthiness and made of galvanized steel, aluminum, or fiberglass. They're marked with the vessel's name, the vessel's port of registry, the boat's capacity in cubic feet, the number of persons it carries, and its identification number. There are 4 places to sit in a lifeboat: the thwarts, side benches, and bow and stern sheets. Buoyancy units under the side benches provide enough flotation to keep the boat afloat, even if it is loaded to capacity and filled with water. Gravity davits are the most common and easily operated mechanism for lowering lifeboats. Lifeboat launching procedures are vessel-specific. Instructions can be found on board the vessel and are practiced during weekly lifeboat drills.
Okay, man, stand by to prepare the boat for underway. Secure that boat flag.
Before the boat is lowered to the water, the drain must be closed.
Drop the man lines.
Man ropes give the crew something to hold on to as the boat is being launched or recovered. The davit crew can also use the man ropes to enter the boat if the embarkation ladder is missing or damaged.
Men on deck, stand by to release the gripes. Release the gripes.
Lifeboats are secured in the stowed position by gripes. When the gripes are released, the boat swings outboard.
Boat crew, come down to the embarkation level. Deck crew, stand by to release the locking bars. Release locking bars.
The locking bar stops the davit arms from accidentally rolling down the trackway when the gripes are secured.
Brakeman, stand by to lower the boat. Deck crew, take your positions. Okay, on my order, lower the boat.
Lifting the winch brake release lever activates the davits. Falls are the ropes used to raise and lower the lifeboat.
Deck crew, pass the frapping lines.
Frapping lines are passed around the falls and secured to the davit arm cleat before passengers are permitted to board the boat. The frapping lines are used to keep the boat from swinging as it descends from the embarkation deck to the water.
Boat crew, prepare to board boat. Board boat. Secure the painter.
The sea painter must be rigged outboard of any obstructions. It should be attached to a strong point on the ship and to the forward inboard thwart of the lifeboat. The painter is attached to the thwart with a toggle that allows it to be released quickly and safely.
Boat crew, slack the frapping lines. Boat crew, release tricing pendant.
Tricing pendants attached to each davit arm and fall block. They pull the boat into the ship's side at the embarkation deck as the boat is being lowered.
Crew, prepare to drop the boat on my order. Lower the boat to the water.
Once the lifeboat is lowered to the water, it is released from the falls. Releasing the boat prematurely could cause serious injuries. The releasing lever is clearly marked and frees both ends of the lifeboat simultaneously. To prevent accidents, only the coxswain is authorized to issue the command to release the falls. Lifeboat engines only have fuel to operate for 24 hours. The fuel should be conserved for use in heavy weather or rescue operations. The engine must be operated each time a boat drill is conducted. An inflatable life raft should be stowed on a cradle in a manner that provides easy access and permits a float-free launch if the vessel sinks suddenly. It must be stowed clear of rigging or superstructures that could interfere with its ability to float free. The life raft canister should be secured to the cradle by a hydrostatic release that is activated by water pressure if the vessel sinks before the raft can be launched manually. In a float-free launch, the hydrostatic release frees the canister and the raft floats to the surface. As the sinking vessel extends the painter to its full length, the raft inflates. A weak link in the painter is designed to part under pressure and free the raft. Whenever possible, launch the raft manually before the emergency reaches the crisis stage. Change the painter to vessel connection so the full strength of the painter takes the place of the weak link. Pull a few feet of line out of the canister and belay it to the cleat located on the raft cradle or to some other nearby strong point. Disconnect the pelican hook on the hydrostatic release to free the canister. The raft should be launched over the lee side, or the wind may pin you to the vessel and create the potential of damage to the raft. Pulling the painter out to its full length and jerking the line activates the inflation mechanism. Wait for full inflation with the canopy erect before boarding. The raft will probably overinflate and you'll hear the sound of CO2 escaping through pressure relief valves. This does not mean that the raft is defective and the sound should cease quickly. If you have time, throw everything that floats over the side just before you abandon ship. You may have to use the debris for flotation. In any case, the material represents a signal that makes you bigger, brighter, and different from your surroundings. Search and rescue pilots always investigate debris. If you can, board the raft directly without getting wet. If the distance is short, step or jump directly into the canopy entrance. You may be able to use a ladder, net, or line to get yourself close enough to board directly. Raft canopies are designed to withstand the impact of people jumping on them from a height of 15 feet, but make sure there is no one else inside before you attempt this maneuver. Keep in mind that there may be gear inside the raft capable of causing injury. If you must enter the water, do so as close as possible to the raft. Think before you jump. Jump from the lowest possible point and be aware of hazards below you. Use the painter as a lifeline. If the raft is upside down, turn it over by means of the righting strap on the bottom. With the wind in your face, right it from the side with the CO2 cylinder where it says, right this side. Climb on the buoyancy tube, lean back, and let your weight flip the raft over. Don't panic if it lands on top of you. You can easily push up the floor and create an air hole as you work your way out from underneath. Boarding the raft from the water can be difficult. Use the swim step and boarding ladder to assist you. It may help to bob down, kick your legs, and use the buoyancy of your immersion suit or PFD to help lift you into the canopy opening where you can reach the grab lines located inside. Once you're inside, assist others.
The heaving line!
Use the heaving line stowed near the canopy entrance to help your crewmates reach the raft.
All right, here we go.
You can slip the ring around your arm to create a lifeline if you have to swim to help another crewman. Don't cut the painter if you don't have to. Your vessel may not sink and you may be able to reboard. As long as it remains afloat, use it as a sea anchor that keeps you close to your last reported position and serves as a better search target than the raft. When the vessel poses a danger to the raft, cut the painter with a safety knife stowed near the canopy entrance. Use the paddle stowed inside to maneuver away from danger. In hot conditions, use the canopy for protection from the sun. When it's cold, seal the canopy openings for warmth, but maintain enough ventilation to prevent a buildup of carbon dioxide from a leaking raft or exhaled breath. Ships are required to carry VHF radio equipment for communication between survival craft, other vessels, and search and rescue units. Whether or not you're required to do so, bring a handheld radio if you can. Grab additional supplies like EPIRBs, extra food and water, blankets, clothing, whatever you can find that might be of use.
Let's pull the floor up so it's a little warmer in here.
In cold conditions, use the hand pump to inflate the floor and provide added insulation. Leave the floor deflated in hot conditions. There are caps in the equipment pack that can be used to seal the pressure relief valves. It's normal for the buoyancy tubes to harden and soften with changes in temperature. If they become too hard, uncap the pressure relief valves. If they become too soft, use the inflation pump. Check to ensure that the drogue or sea anchor was deployed as the raft inflated. A life raft drifts rapidly and you want to remain as close as possible to your last reported position. If the primary drogue has become fouled, there's a spare in the equipment pack. Set both drogues, if necessary, to reduce drift. Make sure the EPIRB is on. The equipment pack contains seasickness pills. Take them, no matter how strong your stomach is. The pitching and rolling of a life raft tends to make everybody sick. Use the repair kit or repair clamps to patch holes in the fabric. Establish a chain of command and set watches. You need a lookout at the canopy entrance and should assign other crewmen to inspect the raft for damage, to bail, pump, or sponge out water, to treat injuries, and to inventory equipment. Inspect the water-activated signal light. Conserve batteries by shutting the light off or unscrewing the bulb during daylight hours. Assign personnel to operate the radio and the signaling devices and to manage the water and food supplies.
Remember to tie that stuff off.
Yeah, I know.
We don't want it to float loose.
Yeah, I know.
If you're the leader, boosting morale is a critical part of your job. Remember the play step and focus on surviving instead of despair.
I got to stay positive, man. Hey, we got it made.
Displaying the contents of the equipment pack and any other supplies you've been able to bring aboard is a good way to demonstrate that you have resources.
All right, Colin, you're in charge of rations.
Giving people jobs is another way to focus their minds on life, but don't waste their energy. Don't permit a crewman who is panicked to threaten the group morale. In extreme circumstances, conflict resolution may become a critical aspect of your leadership role. If there is more than one raft in the water, tie them together. The rafts will ride better in a heavy sea state and be less likely to capsize. You have more resources as a group. Morale will be easier to maintain, and you'll make a bigger search target. Wake everyone if it rains to catch water using the rain-catching devices fitted on the canopy. Allow the salt residue to wash off first. Study the survival instructions. Don't smoke. Smoking makes you thirsty and could damage the fabric of the raft. High-intensity pyrotechnics that meet requirements established by the Safety of Life at Sea Convention include 15,000 candle power hand flares and 40,000 candle power parachute rockets. These devices are standard equipment aboard survival craft. To activate this hand flare, remove the cap at the base and the trigger falls out of the canister. Give it a tug. Even someone wearing an immersion suit can ignite the device. Similarly, remove the cap on the base of this parachute rocket and the trigger falls out of the canister. The ignition mechanism is highly reliable and can be activated in or out of the water. Other manufacturers use different triggering systems. Make sure you know how to use yours. Pyrotechnics should only be used when there is a good prospect that someone can see you. Hand flares should be used only when you can hear or see a boat or plane. Their value is to provide a homing signal as rescue units make a final approach to your position. Rocket-propelled parachute flares can be seen over greater distances, depending on the intensity, the duration of burn, and the atmospheric conditions. But they should be used only when you have reason to believe there may be a rescue unit within viewing range. Don't exhaust your pyrotechnics all at once. If you've ignited a rocket flare and there is no response, it's probably advisable to wait until there is some new indication that rescue units are within range before launching another. Pyrotechnic devices should be treated as firearms and launched carefully to prevent injuries or damage to the raft. Hold flares downwind at arm's length and look away. Metal canister flares get white hot. Be sure to hold the insulated handle and be extremely careful with the glowing canister. In strong winds, aim a parachute rocket at a 45-degree angle into the wind so that the signal is carried over your position. Don't aim a rocket-propelled flare at a rescue unit that is close at hand. A high-intensity parachute rocket reaches an altitude of at least 1,000 feet and burns for up to a minute. The helicopter pilot doesn't need that in the cockpit. Depending on atmospheric conditions, Solace parachute rockets are visible at distances up to 40 miles. 15-minute orange smokes are excellent daylight signaling devices. There are also day-night man-overboard signals that incorporate strobe lights and orange smoke and can be attached to ring buoys. Mirrors are the brightest daytime signals. To use a mirror, focus the point of reflected light on your hand and then move your hand until it covers the target. Remove your hand and wiggle the mirror in all directions.